and welcome to WKNC's official sports podcast, In the Den. Today, we're going to be going over the MLB Draft, which just concluded over the weekend. We're going to be looking at, who's likely to sign, who isn't, and what the roster will be looking like for next year. And then we're going to be going over some former NC State players who were drafted. It's kind of like how has their journey gone and what could the players drafted this year learn from them. So, get your headphones on. Let's get straight to it. NC State has a lot of wild cards when it comes to their baseball, like how it's going to be looking next year. NC State had 7 players selected in the draft, which is more than UNC and Duke combined, although to be fair, Duke only had 1 player drafted from what I've seen. We're going to just go by when they were selected, and we're going to see just how their futures could look like. A lot of them are college juniors. I think pretty much all of them are. So a lot of them do have the option to return if they don't sign with their teams. The deadline is August 1st, which is when I come back from my little 2-week break. So we'll see how that looks like. But first off, on day 1, 2 players were selected. Ty Head, 46 overall to the Orioles. I think he'll probably sign, especially, being a second-round pick. He kind of joins that large history of, or I guess, large in number, but, in history, the Orioles have been drafting a lot of college outfielders. I think it's the first one I can really name of is Heston Kjerstad in 2020. Since then, they've had Colton Cowser was a college guy, Dylan Beavers was a college guy, and most recently drafted Vance Honeycutt in the first round. And so Head kind of joins that pattern and that trend. A lot of scouts said that he could be a guy that could be a long-term center fielder. And, given the Orioles' previous track record this position, I think he could definitely find his way onto a roster. It'll just kind of depend on how much his game develops and if, he's capable of it. He was kind of the guy out of this draft class that had the least amount of questions to his game. Unlike the next guy, who I also think is very likely to sign, but I'm not sure if he'll be in the MLB anytime soon. Jacob Dudan was selected 83rd overall by the Athletics. I think he'll sign just because he's going to be out until the fall of 2027. Although actually, probably not, because he hasn't used his redshirt year yet, it seems. So there's definitely the possibility where he could take a redshirt and play in 2028. But why not play now when he has it all kind of lined up for him? Some see him as being a high-end reliever, even though he is coming off Tommy John's. It's mostly just because he has a really good fastball and a good slider. His changeup could develop. It's just going to depend on how he looks coming back from Tommy John's, because that's usually like the death penalty for what a pitcher could be, like what their prime could be. And maybe if they manage to develop him like they did Mason Miller, who I don't think was a really high draft pick. Let's see. Okay, I forgot. Oh, man. I forgot that he's with Padres now. I remember him with the Athletics starting off. Let's see. When was he drafted? Okay, he was drafted in the 3rd round. So that's about where Dudan was selected. So there's definitely the possibility that he could develop into something really good. It just depends on his health. That's basically all we have to say. And then the other big prospect who I think could definitely stay with the team. This is one I feel a little less optimistic about because of the team rather than the player. Ryan Moran, 140th overall pick to the Pirates. Paul Skeens, that's the guy that I remember is still with Pittsburgh and is probably going to be leaving soon. I know his future is pretty much in flux with that team, but adding Moran in a draft could help improve it. They haven't had the best track record with developing pitchers. I mean, a lot of their, not every guy who's going to be selected is going to be the elite number one guy right off the bat. But even then, they haven't really had any great pitchers come from their system outside of Skeens. I mean, Mitch Keller isn't great. Kind of going through the list. Sorry. I mean, Jared Jones is okay. Bubba Chandler is there's a lot of okay, not elite. We'll see if Moran can be elite, but he's definitely at least going to be okay. His fastball's still good, although, he does need some development on his curve and slider, just getting a little bit more speed while also maintaining some of the kind of swing and miss friability that he's been able to offer the team when he was on the field. His injury was a lot less severe than Dudan, so he could very well just come in right away and start improving. But, this is a guy who I think could definitely find a spot in the rotation for the Pirates. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I think, he definitely has the opportunity for a pitching staff that is not that elite. There could be room for him. Another player who I think is very likely to sign, and this is kind of a different story of just this was a guy that was drafted a lot earlier than I expected, and I mean, that's great. But I think that kind of locks in that he's going to go. Luke Nixon, 150th overall pick to the Giants. He's kind of small, but scouts, they loved his IQ and just his ability to make contact. He will be joining a infield farm system for the Giants that has a lot of infielders in their top 30, or even just in the top 100 general, just because, signing a lot of international guys definitely helps with your chances, even though their ETAs are most likely going to be later than Nixon. So there's a chance he could jump over them and find himself in the rotation for the Giants in the future. We'll see if his bat grows and if he gets any notable amount of strength with his size, or even find some elite speed with him. Other draftees who I have as probable returners: Sherman Johnson, 212 overall to the Reds. Maybe another year the hot corner in the ACC could really help his stock. There's a lot of questions on whether he has hit his ceiling when it comes to his power and arm. You could argue that maybe he's kind of hit his ceiling in college baseball, or you could argue that maybe he hasn't gotten it yet, just because, he hit 339 home runs the last year, but he wasn't really a can't miss prospect, because again, there's just concerns about whether his power can be good enough to make it into the MLB level. And the same kind of goes for his, his arm. Even though he is on the hot corner, it's definitely not the best there. I mean, this could be one that kind of comes down to whether or not NIL is good enough. He's in a 230,000 draft slot value, so he's going to get some good money. It's just a question on whether or not he will develop, or if he's already developed enough and will likely stay in the lower ranks. This one was a surprise to me. Cooper Consiglio, 279th overall to the Phillies. His numbers don't really stand out, but he has a really good fastball. His curveball and slider both show a decent amount of promise, so there's definitely room for him to succeed on this Phillies farm system. They have Gage Wood, which is a decent high school guy. I don't think they have there's not a lot of elite college pitchers in the ranks from what I'm seeing. So there's definitely a chance that he could come by and find some reps. But this could be another guy who goes back to being a reliever and is decent enough at that to be a AAA or MLB guy. The last one selected, Chris McHugh, 335th overall to the Padres. Great contact, questionable power. This is another question of MLB conditioning, training. Maybe he could tap into that potential, or maybe he could try to use this as kind of leverage, get another year of showing that he can produce, and that maybe that could help him out. I don't think he's in the transfer portal. He hasn't declared or anything. So if he stays, he's staying with State. But I mean, maybe going out would help him develop his strength. Only time will tell what we can get from McHugh and if he decides to join the Padres system or not. That's all the guys that were drafted. Some notable guys who went undrafted who could get signed. Well, they only had 2 seniors in the draft who are not going to be able to come back because they're seniors. Dalton Bargo, who definitely has that utility as a fielder, but not much else to him. I mean, he was a decent hitter, but he kind of fell off in that last season. I haven't seen any rumors on if he's gotten signed at all. And the same can be said about Braden Frostman, who, he was one of the better hitters on the team. I'm surprised that he went undrafted, and maybe he could find himself getting signed somewhere as well. But, he's out of eligibility. So time will tell on that. Let me check something else real quick. Seems like, okay, Darion Williams is still unsigned, interestingly enough. Sorry, it's just I'm kind of following him because I don't know where he's going. But, all right, I think that's enough for this segment. They have a really strong draft class. There's going to be some next man up with their roster. It just kind of depends on who stays and who doesn't. I guess that's, something to follow in these next few weeks. All right, so now I'm going to go on to the next segment about kind of some players who were recently drafted from NC State and how their careers have been going. So I have a bunch of scenarios of players who kind of took a bunch of different routes going through NC State and just, how have they been going through the pro ranks because of that. First up, 2024, I have Eli Serrano III. He was one of those highly touted high school recruits out of Fuquay, Farnia. He decided to go to NC State despite being drafted as a high schooler, stating that NC State was just a family that he did not want to miss out on. He was a versatile outfielder and first baseman for the squad, batting nearly 300 with 16 home runs and 71 RBIs in 2 years, which is about 100 games, which is close to a full season. That's not bad. It's pretty good. It boosted him from being around near the 200 slot to around the 100. So, he, I guess, halved his position in the draft and was able to find himself selected by the New York Mets. Let's see. Scouts touted his contact ability and quality defense. Let's see. He showed great potential in the rookie league, and the more that he rose, the more he began to struggle. He had a 222 batting average in A+, but as soon as he hit AA, which is as of this year, as of recording, he is below the Mendoza line at 193. But he's been a lot more cleaner defensively. He has no errors, despite last year having about 5. And he's, in the New York Mets top prospect. He's 11th. He has an expected debut 2027. So, it's just a classic story of like a high schooler who was able to come to NC State and was able to really put themselves in the forefront, get the development that they need, and kind of prove that they can handle this. Because, that's an issue with some high schoolers is, of course, the level of competition. It's like I can't imagine that high school is really tough unless if you are playing like perfect game All-American stuff. But, being at NC State was really helpful. Even though he is stumbling a little bit, I think he will be able to kind of clean things up in AA and eventually find himself in AAA. Next player I have is, 2025, the pitcher, Dominic Fritton. He was considered a low-risk, high-reward prospect for the Tampa Bay Rays from the start. He was a reliever for most of his career, but during the later parts of his time, he managed to become a primary Friday. The Friday starter is like usually your best pitcher, I'm pretty sure, and he was able to fill that role. He got 13 All ACC. 11-17 record is really good. And just being a lefty ACC pitcher with a 94-mile-per-hour fastball is really helpful, especially with a breaking and a changeup that had some promise as well. He started his journey right away in the A+ level. He has like a 3-5 record, 5.8 ERA. So it's not great, but in these past few weeks, he managed to really kind of clean things up. He's only given up 5 hits in the last 8 innings pitched as of recording. He's just starting his journey, but the potential is really there. I think that, it's always going to be like a rough transition period from the start, especially if you don't really, it's like if you play like a full season at, like the rookie league or A+, and you eventually move your way up to another level, like right now he's at A+. It's going to be hard for a little bit. We see the same with Serrano. We'll probably see the same with a lot of these guys coming up. But it just takes time and development. All right, up next, I have Luka Tresh. And this is kind of one of those, I'm not going to spoil it. He was drafted 499th overall in 2021 to the Kansas City Royals. He was kind of the transition between Patrick Bailey and Jacob Cozart. But, when he had this opportunity to start, he managed to get 15 home runs in that one season starting, 43 RBIs. He had great leadership ability as a primary catcher. He was very much a strong anchor to that World Series run that they had. He had great power, but of course his contact ability at 231 and questions about his experience really made him like collapse in the draft to about the 17th round. He struggled at the start, but then when he managed to get so he started single A, went to the rookie league. He did really good in the rookie league, hitting that 398, and that was just enough to kind of jump him up to the A+ ranks where he hit about 273. His batting average was starting to go up, and people were starting to see that contact capability that wasn't really shown in that 1 year at NC State. And ever since he's now at the AA level, and he's trying to get all the momentum he could. He's, getting more power, getting more contact. And he's also had some invitations to spring training in 2025 and 2026. Although I think the future at catcher is set up with Blake Mitchell, although his time of arrival is a little bit later. Well, no, it's around the same time, but he's at a lower level. There's definitely an opportunity for Luka Tresh to come in and get some playing time, some experience working with Salvador Perez. I think there's a lot of opportunity for Tresh to find his way. You know, going from 17th round to a guy who could become a backup catcher in the MLB level, it's very impressive. And while his 1 year at NC State maybe wasn't the strongest indicator of his success, it definitely laid the foundation, which is always good to have. Good foundation. Up next in 2021, Jose Torres, drafted 89th overall. Hailing from the Dominican Republic, he moved over to Baltimore to try to, find his way to the MLB, join a high school ranks at a pretty prestigious prep school, I think, in Baltimore. Did not write down the name of it. But he was, a smaller, lankier kid, but he did show a lot of promise as a shortstop just with, intangibles. And he was drafted in the 24th round by the Brewers. But he decided to join NC State. He mentioned that an inspiration was seeing Trey Turner's journey through NC State and kind of seeing a similar opportunity for him. And as a true freshman, he was able to be a starting shortstop right away, which is pretty impressive. He hit a .333, 13 RBIs. But this was, right before the lockdown happened, so the numbers probably don't really pop out too much. But in 17 games, it's really good momentum. In 2021, he managed to carry that over. He had 44 RBIs in a full season, batting .289, 10 home runs. So he had some strength to him. He had that ability to hit. He had aggressiveness on the plate, and that was even helpful with the Super Regionals against Arkansas. It was like a game winner home run that Torres hit, which is always nice to see, and that's how you kind of lock yourself up into state lore. He was eventually drafted 89th overall to the Cincinnati Reds. He kind of just flew past the rookie leagues and single A teams, but eventually found himself in Double A starting. But he spent the 2 years with the Chattanooga Lookouts. He was kind of struggling for a bit. He's at the Mendoza line, 11 home runs, 56 RBIs, and that's in 2 seasons. So, while his defensively, he has been good enough to kind of hold his own, the hitting has kind of plateaued to just being full-on mediocrity, and it's considered worrisome. And that's kind of why I think Cincinnati kind of moved off him. They let him become eligible for the Rule 5 draft, which, if you don't know how it's work, it's like he was essentially left off the 40-man AAA roster and was eligible to be moved to a AAA squad of another team in order to prevent player hoarding. And he was selected by the Colorado Rockies, where he has since been playing with their AA team, and he even played in the Dominican Republic Winter League, although his numbers have kind of stayed the same, which is always, of course, not ideal. I think they're all going to hit their limit eventually, but it's just a matter of can they have it in them to kind of break through it? I think Torres definitely has the potential. We saw a lot of it in college, which I know college is inferior to the MLB ranks. I think even the rookie, I'm sure a rookie league team could beat a average team in college baseball. But I hope he can make a pro roster someday. It just takes time. And if not, I think he could have himself a really good career in Double A if he manages to find some consistency and is able to find whatever is missing to improve his game. One player who is probably at his limit already and might be on his way out, Nick Swiney, I think it's pronounced. Left-handed pitcher, 67th overall in 2020. Highest rated NC State pitch and draft prospect. So it's like, I don't know why I have it at 67th overall. I think he was selected. No, that's later. Dudan, I say he might have broken that record. He did not. He was drafted 83rd. And although, but they kind of had similar stories. Swiney was predominantly a reliever. He only started 8 games in 3 years, although he pitched in 50. His junior year, he became a starter, even though he only went in 4 games. That was mostly because of the COVID pandemic, but he had a 4-0 record, a 129 ERA, so his numbers looked pretty good, especially since he finished with a 15-1 record as a reliever. He had a really good curveball. His fastball was a bit slow, but that can always be developed in the minor league rankings. The Giants took a chance on him. It was part of a compensation pick for Madison Bumgarner leaving. Fun fact. He had a 0.84 ERA in 12 starts across the rookie league and single A. But his productivity started to slow down once he hit A+. He was at like a 3.84 ERA. He managed to find himself coming into relief in Double A. So single, like A+, he was a starter still, but having a 4.6 record and a high ERA, especially when coming out of college, you were seen as a relief pitcher, kind of just certified like, yeah, you're gonna be a reliever, but it's good that you got the extra reps. He struggled to produce some great numbers in Double A and Triple A. Okay, his Double A record, he did pretty well, 3-0, 1.15 ERA, but then just crashed and burned. 5.64 ERA and 26 relief innings. And this is another player who was a Rule 5 draftee. He was selected by the Astros. But his numbers have been staying relatively the same the past year and is now a free agent. I have not heard any rumors of him being signed anywhere. Let's see. He did not manage to make it to the MLB ranks just yet. So we'll see what happens to him. He might just have to retire. He might be able to find success somewhere else. But it feels like, he got so close to making it to the MLB ranks, but then just things did not work out for him, which happens. And that's just, a humility thing that you have to accept as a possibility. Like, it's obvious, 20 rounds of a draft and not everyone's going to be successful. You just always hope that you're the one who is. And speaking of the one who is, Patrick Bailey, 13th overall in 2020. He's the second highest player to be drafted in NCAA history. It was like him and Trey Turner were selected around the same time. Carlos Rodon, I think, was a top 3 pick. So he's going to hold that record for a while, I believe. He was drafted by the Twins in high school, but then he honored his commitment to play for NC State. He was coming out of High Point, was part of the men's national team U18 roster. So again, great experience already. He hit above 300. He was a freshman player of the year, a career 106 RBIs, including a COVID year. Scouts, loved his athleticism as a fender. His bat was really good as well. He had great contact. He had great hitting ability. This is just a high-end draft prospect that you just have to take a chance on. When he was coming in, he did kind of struggle at the A+ level, going from like a 366 at rookie league and A to 185 and A+. He went to the fall league, however, and there was something there that just kind of everything kind of clicked because he was able to hit above 250 for most of his time since that fall league in 2021. He was able to just fly through A+, Double A, Triple A in 2 years. And, he hit 14 home runs, which isn't great power, but there were still some. His power kind of lost a little bit of it as the contact started going up and as he started going higher. But spring training, he debuted with the Giants in 2023. He was a reliable catcher for the Giants for a couple of years, although the Giants have not had much success. He was kind of a guy that was able to hold his own for a while. The position was okay, we're not going to stress this position. I mean, I didn't watch a lot of Giants games because they're all the way out west. But who knows? Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong about that. He did get traded to the Cleveland lately, which is where he's playing today. His batting average kind of dropped down to whatchamacallit, like below the Mendoza line again. So we'll see. Maybe he's starting to take backwards, or maybe he is starting to show some elite athleticism. Only time will tell. But, I mean, a lot of different lessons to kind of pick up there. It's just, take your time, focus on it's not about the speed in which you get there. It's about whether you can get there and whether you can just keep improving, keep learning, and keep playing. But that's all I have for you guys today. As I mentioned before, I'm going to be taking a 2-week hiatus. I'll be back in August, like that first week of August, to start recording stuff again. I will have my kind of soccer mega episode coming up at that time. But that's the end of today's video or podcast. I don't know why I said video. Have a good one and go Pack.